ended by Titus Andronicus' The Cooking Show. Shakespeare, as a young writer, seems to have gone through an early blood and guts period. No doubt if he were still alive today, he'd be in Hollywood working on Titus Andronicus IX, Just Desserts. How bad would that be? But now we move on to one of Shakespeare's more mature plays, as we present his dark and brooding tragedy, Othello, the Moor of Venice.
Speak of me as I am. Let nothing extenuate of one who loved not wisely but too well. For never was there a story of more woe than this of Othello and his Desdemona. More of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, we left Ben to research Othello all on his own, and he thought he could get away with telling the tale of Othello with the marshmallow and a piece of chocolate.
The more you know, and shooting star.
No, but using this is fucking dumb, because in the 16th century, Othello wasn't a campfire snack. He was a big black man. And Desdemona wasn't a marshmallow. She was a bigger black man.
No, Desdemona wasn't.
Obviously, folks, we have a bit of a problem in performing Othello the Moor of Venice, because the part was written for a black man. And Tyler and I are not... I'm definitely tall.
We're crackers, honkers.
Basically. So, instead of me, because of physical limitations, we'll just move on. We'll skip Othello.
No, we got it. Here, put this on. Okay, listen, just because we're white doesn't mean we can't jump, okay? Welcome basketball, let's J-fresh this shit, okay, come on. By the name of Othello, he liked white women and he liked green jello.
And a punk named Iago who made himself a menace because he didn't like Othello, the Moor of Venice.
Now Othello got married to Desdemona.
But he took her for the wars and left her alone. Mona. He left her alone.
He didn't write a message and he didn't tell a photo.
Chip.
Desdemona, she was faithful, she was chastity taught, she was the daughter of a dude.
She was totally white, but Iago had a plan that was clever and slick. He was crafty.
He was sly.
He was sort of a dick.
He said, I'm gonna shout you more.
How you gonna do it?
I know it's tragic applause that he's
Too damn jealous.
I need a tube, I need a dope, I need a kind of a schmo.
So I found a chump sucker by the name of Cassio.
And it plants on him Desdemona's handkerchief.
And Othello gets to wondering, just maybe if, while they've been out fighting,
commanding an army.
Are Desi and Cass playing hands the salami? Salami.
So we come back home and stick a pillow in our thighs.
Kills her soliloquies about his discourse.
Amelia at the door.
We met in Act 4.
Who say a big dummy? She weren't no whore, she was
Pure,
she was
clean,
she was
original too.
So why you have to go and make her face turn blue?
It's true.
That's you.
Now what you gonna do? And Othello say,
Yo, this is getting pretty scary.
So he pulled out his blade and committed hurry.
Iago got caught, but he probably copped a plea.
Loaded up his bags.
And moved to Beverly
Hills, daddies. Improv. I mean, what are you gonna do?
This was weird that we could do that. Acting. Why don't we take a break from all of these heavy tragedies and move on to something a little more kid-friendly like the comedies?
Comedies. Great. Comedies. Yeah. Great.
You see, when it came to comedies, Shakespeare was a genius at borrowing and adapting different theatrical traditions.
These influences include the Roman plays of
Plautus
and
Terus,
Ovid's Metamorphoses, which are hysterically funny, as well as the rich Italian tradition of Comedies
with Parmigiano.
Yeah, basically Shakespeare stole everything he ever wrote.
Well, stole's a little strong. We'll go with distilled.
Okay.
Distilled.
Shakespeare distilled the 3 or 4 greatest comic gimmicks of his time, and then he milked them into 16 fucking plays.
You see, Shakespeare was a genius at borrowing and adapting different theatrical devices, but once he found a technique that worked, he used it over and over again. So, Mr. Shakespeare, the question we have for you is,
Why did you write 16 comedies when you could have written just one?
In answer to this question, we of the Bedtime Justin have blessed you all by taking all 16 of Shakespeare's comedies and putting it into a single play, which we have titled The Comedy of Two Well-Measured Gentlemen Lost in the Merry Wives of Venice on a Midsummer's Twelfth Night in Winter.
Or
Cymbeline taming Pericles the merchant in The Tempest of Love as much as you like it for nothing.
She's the man.
Starting with mine.
Comedy. Act 1. A Spanish duke swears an oath of celibacy and turns the rule of his kingdom over to his sadistical and tyrannical twin brother. He learns some fantastical feats of magic and sets sail for the golden age of Greece, along with his daughters. 3 beautiful sets of virginal, identical twins. While rounding the heel of Italy, the Duke's ship is caught in a terrible tempest, which, in its fury, casts the Duke up on a desert island, along with the loveliest and most virginal of his daughters, who stumbles into a cave where she is molested by a creature who is either a man, a fish, or both.
Act 2. The long-lost children of the Duke's brother, also coincidentally 3 sets of identical twins, have just arrived in Italy. Though still possessed of an inner nobility, they are ragged, destitute, penniless, flea-infested shadows of the men they once were. And in the utmost extremity are forced to borrow money from an old Jew, who deceives them into putting down their brains as collateral on the loan. Meanwhile, the 6 brothers fall in love with the 6 Italian sisters, 3 of whom are contemptuous, sharp-tongued little shrews, while the other 3 are submissive, air-headed little bimbos.
Act 3! The shipwrecked identical daughters of the Duke wash up on the shores of Italy, disguise themselves as men, and become pages to the shrews and matchmakers to the Duke's brothers' sons. They lead all the lovers into a nearby forest where, on a midsummer's night, a bunch of mischievous fairies squeeze the aphrodite juice of a hermaphroditic flower in the shrews' eyes, causing them to fall in love with their own pages, who in turn have fallen in love with the Duke's brothers' sons, while the queen of the fairies seduces a jackass, and they all have a lovely bisexual animalistic orgy. Act 4!
The elderly fathers of the Italian sisters, finding their daughters missing, dispatch messages to the pages, telling them to kill any man in the vicinity.
However, unable to find the men in the forest, the faithful messengers, in a final misguided act of loyalty, deliver the messages to each other and kill themselves.
Meanwhile, the fish creature and the Duke arrive in the forest disguised as Russians, and for no apparent reason perform a 2-man underwater version of Fiddler on the Roof. Act 5!
The Duke commands the fairies to right their wrongs.
The pages and the bimbos get to knock down, drag out, fight in the mud.
During which the pages' clothes get ripped off, revealing female genitalia.
The Duke recognizes his daughter.
The Duke's brother's sons recognize their uncle.
Well, one of the bimbos happens to be Kristen Stewart.
And they all get married and go out to dinner.
Oh, except for a minor character in the second act who gets eaten by a bear, and the Duke's brother's sons, who, unable to pay back the old Jew, give themselves to the father.
And they all lived happily ever after.